How long will Africa wait to own her voice? For centuries, others have spoken for us. Told us who to fear, who to serve, and who to obey. But now, one man stands in defiance. His name is Captain Ibrahim Traoré. And his secret deal with Russia may change Africa forever. They tried to silence him. They betrayed him. They even sent killers after him. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré did not fall. Instead, he flew to Moscow. Not as a beggar, but as a brother. Watch till the end to uncover the twist and the powerful message behind this journey. Title: How Ibrahim Traoré Made a Deal with Russia. Can a man sleep with both eyes closed in a house full of traitors? Does the ant eat from the same bowl as the lion without fear? Captain Ibrahim Traoré had survived what many men wouldn't. Many assassination attempts. Poison in his tea. A roadside bomb planted by one of his own guards. Smiling faces hid sharp knives. Some of his trusted men whispered with foreign tongues in the night, tongues trained in Paris. But Traoré was not just a soldier. He was a thinker. He watched, listened, and waited. When they expected him to run, he stayed. When they thought he'd beg France for help, he made a different call. The people of Burkina Faso were tired. Tired of empty promises, fake aid, and gold leaving the country while hunger stayed. France had held the leash for too long. Now, the leash was cut. Captain Traoré didn't shout it. He acted. He turned to the east, to Russia. While others laughed, he planned a visit that would shake the old world. Not just for Burkina, but for Africa. But he needed eyes in the snow before his boots could touch it. So he sent someone no one knew, Teen, a 16-year-old orphaned girl from the Sahel, skilled in silence and secrets. She would go first, quietly. Traoré had made his choice. But danger was far from over. Even a lion needs a bird to watch the sky. Her name was Teen, young, thin, and easily ignored. But her mind was sharp like a needle, and her eyes missed nothing. At 16, she had no parents, no home, and no fear. Captain Traoré had met her in a dusty village after bandits backed by foreign guns burned everything she knew. She asked him a question he never forgot. Why do we always bow to those who steal from us? He didn't answer her then. He answered now, by giving her a mission. Quiet but dangerous. Under a false name, Teen entered Moscow. She wore thick coats and moved like a lost student, blending in easily. She stayed in a cheap hostel. She took pictures of rooms before meetings. She tracked the people who came too close. She listened to guards who didn't know she spoke Russian. And every night, she called a secret line. Just 2 words, all clear. Back in Ouagadougou, Traoré got her signal. It was time. His jet was waiting. But he wasn't alone. His every move was being tracked, not by France, not by Russia, but someone else entirely. Someone hiding in the cracks of power. The snow in Moscow was white. But beneath it, footprints had started to cross. The jet touched down in Moscow under a sky as gray as old battles. Captain Ibrahim Traoré stepped out wearing a long dark coat, his beret low over his eyes. Snow crunched under his boots like dry bones. Cameras flashed. Officials smiled. But Traoré didn't trust smiles anymore. Behind the scenes, Teen watched from a nearby building, disguised as a street cleaner. Her earpiece buzzed with Russian and French whispers. One voice stood out: it wasn't part of the Russian team or the French spies who had followed Traoré here. It was a new player. A private group. Paid not to protect peace, but to destroy it. They had one goal: stop the meeting. Stop the deal. Stop the new path for Africa. Traore entered the Kremlin, where President Putin awaited. The room was warm, filled with strength. No translators. Men who understood the same language of strategy and survival. But while hands were shaking inside, chaos was brewing outside. A man with a false Russian ID had slipped into the outer security line. He wasn't alone. His mission: cause an international scandal. Blame Burkina. Cut the bridge. But Teen saw him first. She moved quickly, calling a coded phrase Traore understood. He paused mid-conversation, eyes narrowing. Putin noticed. The game had begun. A man who wears a mask knows how to see through the masks of others. Inside the Kremlin, the air was tense. President Putin and Captain Ibrahim Traoré shook hands. The room was large, filled with statues of past leaders, each one telling a story of power, betrayal, and survival. Traoré sat across from Putin, steady, not betraying the danger he knew was lurking. Outside, Tina's fingers danced over her phone, sending a signal back to Ouagadougou. The Russian man with the fake ID had gathered others, hoping to discredit the meeting by creating a false story of betrayal. They would accuse Traoré of planning to sell African resources to Russia for his personal gain. But Captain Traoré was not just a soldier, he was a strategist. In a moment of clarity, Traoré turned to Putin and said, "We're both not strangers to those who want to turn Africa into their playground. We need to protect what's ours. You and I, we are the key to a new world for Africa." Putin's eyes hardened, and for the first time in the meeting, a small nod came from the Russian president. As Teen called to alert Traoré, he stood up and looked Putin in the eyes. "I will not leave here until Africa's future is safe." The handshake became a pact, not just between two leaders, but between two countries determined to rewrite the story of Africa's future. But the betrayal had already begun. A helicopter was waiting outside, poised to transport Traoré back to safety. In that moment, a decision had to be made. Was the deal worth the risk? Traoré didn't care about the headlines. He cared about the people who put their faith in him. Days later, in a meeting that would change Africa's future, Traoré stood before a gathering of African leaders. It wasn't just a speech. It was a movement. Africa must stand on its own. We no longer beg. We build. With Russia now as a partner, a new economic path was open. Resources once controlled by foreign powers were slowly returning to African hands. Burkina Faso had begun its rise, and others would follow. As the days passed, the winds of change swept across the continent. Other African countries, inspired by Traoré's bravery, began to see a new future. African nations were starting to speak with one voice. No longer were they begging for scraps from the tables of the West. Now, they were negotiating deals, trading goods, and building partnerships with nations that understood their value. Traoré's decision to meet Putin was not just a diplomatic move, it was a message to the world. Africa had a seat at the table. No longer would they be exploited for their resources and left behind in the global race for power. But even as hope filled the air, danger remained. The same forces that tried to kill Traoré before were still at work, lurking in the shadows, seeking to undo the progress made. But this time, Africa was ready. Traoré's return to Ouagadougou was not just about securing a deal with Russia. It was about planting a seed for Africa's future. With Putin's backing, the road ahead would be full of challenges, but the potential was immense. Putin had agreed to provide military training, technical support, and investment. The support was clear: Russia was ready to back Africa's push for independence. Freedom is never free. It is paid for in sweat, sacrifice, and strength. The truth was clear now: Africa was taking control of its destiny. The gold beneath the ground was no longer for foreign hands to take. The people had power. The question remained, would they keep it? Traoré's move to Russia had begun the shift. But the cost of this change was high. Forces both within and outside Africa would stop at nothing to see the new alliance fall apart. Power, wealth, and fear were powerful enemies. But Captain Traoré knew that freedom was always worth the price. Putin had offered more than just words. He promised to train African soldiers, provide technological expertise, and offer direct assistance in infrastructure development. It was a partnership built on mutual respect, not exploitation. Traoré knew this was the opportunity to make Africa stronger, one decision at a time. When the sun rises, it shines on every part of the land, from the rich to the poor. The sun rose over a new Africa. A place where leaders like Traoré, fueled by the courage of their people, stood tall and proud. The path ahead was long, but for the first time in decades, there was hope. The deal with Russia was just the beginning. Africa was rewriting its story, and its people were no longer waiting for permission to live. They were building their future, step by step, side by side. Putin had kept his word, sending military experts to train African forces and offering strategic support to strengthen the continent's security. This was more than just a deal, it was a blueprint for Africa's rise. Power doesn't come from what you own, but from what you give. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's decision to stand against old powers had created a ripple of change. Unity was no longer a dream. It was a reality. Russia's support had empowered Africa to speak with a new voice, and the world had no choice but to listen. The sun never sets on a continent that is awake. As the years goes, Ibrahim Traoré's legacy is growing stronger. The deal with Russia has not only secured Burkina Faso's future but has sparked a movement that spreads across Africa. A movement of unity, strength, and hope. In the end, the true victory is not just in gold or power. It is in the hearts of the people who dared to dream of a different future. A future where Africa stands strong and free. Russia remains a steadfast partner, offering continued support for Africa's development, helping to build infrastructure, enhance education, and strengthen security. True power lies in the hands of those who believe in their own strength and in their people's dreams. Moral lesson. No matter how dark the path, a true leader will always lead their people to the light. Unity, courage, and vision are the tools Africa needs to carve out its own destiny.